Hey there, scary people. So I am back on a day when I wouldn't normally post, just because I wanted to share some extra bonus tips on picking your movie project. So if you have a goal of making a feature film, but don't quite yet have the whole idea, the whole concept put together, here's a couple other things that you can think about to help you in deciding what kind of genre and what kind of story to tell. So number one, think about what you already have at your disposal. So this is a tip that maybe you have heard on other sites before. It's a tip often given to new filmmakers. Film budgets can get out of hand very quickly. So we're going to be talking about that eventually when we get to our budgeting phase. But film budgets, they can climb pretty quickly. And if your goal is just to make a low budget film, maybe just to use a little bit of your own savings or do a little bit of crowdfunding, but overall put together a low budget to do a film, you don't want that budget getting blown up over little things like, oh, I have to get, a certain location, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. So one good tip is to make out a list of everything that you have at your disposal. So what are things you already have that could make for a very cool film? Maybe you do have access to a really interesting location. So one friend of mine had access to a house that was very isolated out in the desert, and they chose to write a whole script and film a whole film around it just because they already had that location for free. So that's a huge amount of savings. So do you have anything interesting like that that could be used for location? Anything like that, even that could be used for interesting props, interesting set pieces, whatever you can think of that you have at your disposal that other filmmakers might not have and that might help keep that budget in check. Make a list of that. My other bonus tip and trick is just to think about writing a story that will be very easy to film. So what do I mean by that? So, okay, in the example of the film that I am going to be using, like I said, it's maybe not like a totally typical horror film, but one of the things about it that's appealing to me, in addition to the fact that it is still scary, is that it's mostly two people in very limited locations. And why this is great, if you're just starting out and you're not too familiar yet with production, the more people you have, the more locations you have, the more your budget is going to blow up, and the more it's going to take a lot of organizing and a lot of planning to get all those pieces to work together. So just imagine this logistically. If you have to organize 20 actors as opposed to two, it's a really big difference. Or even if you have to organize 6 actors as opposed to 2, it's a lot more time, effort, it's a lot more trouble than just organizing those 2 people. Limited locations is important for the same reason. If you have to have 20 different locations, keep in mind, number one, that if these aren't locations you already have access to, you're paying for each of those locations, so the budget's going to blow up. But again, it is a lot to plan and organize. You're going to have to schedule with all those locations. You're going to have to get them all lined up within a few weeks of each other so that, you guys can complete your filming within a few weeks. Generally, if you film one day, but then you guys don't see each other for however many weeks or however long to complete your filming, some of the momentum is going to be lost. Some of the engagement of the actors and the crew is going to be lost. So you want to be able to schedule easily and not have to transport people all over the place. That's the other thing about having a lot of locations. You're going to have to transport that cast and crew to each place. This adds to your budget as well. It's also going to add to that organization factor. So this next week, while you're thinking about what project you want to pick, try to brainstorm not only what do you already have at your disposal, but what are some story ideas you can come up with that just involve a very limited number of characters and a very limited number of locations. And as I mentioned in the last video, think a bit about your genre. And if you're not too concerned with the making the money back piece, but say you really want to do a drama, you can absolutely have a really good drama with 2 people talking. But if you do want to, angle towards a horror film or a film like that has a proven track record of that particular genre being a little easier to sell, a little easier to make your money back, this is actually a good thing, because limited locations, limited characters, a film that's somewhat isolated and really contained actually works really well for that genre. So think about any film in the horror genre that you've seen where it's a few people maybe trapped in one small location. And you'll see that there's actually quite a history and a track record of small contained films doing really well in the horror world. All right, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can follow this filmmaking journey over the next year. Please be sure also to comment and let me know if you're working on a film yourself. And I look forward to seeing you guys again next week when I'm going to share some free stuff and some tips and tricks for brainstorming your amazing film ideas.